as a law can be passed bad, a law can turn around and then be passed good. I was having a conversation with a co-worker at the time, before I was called off the job, to do whatever the Lord has me do. But I was talking to another co-worker who was African American, and I talked to the co-worker. I said, we were talking about Planned Parenthood, how it was designed to kill black babies. So there's a war made on, and that's why I understand the whole thing. As an African American, black people share a common plight in America. So we do share a common plight. As I mentioned earlier, you could get shot nowadays by a cop if you're a young black man. So sometimes when people knock on my door, I don't even answer the door because I don't know who's out there and what's going on. But I do know what scriptures to apply and how to deal with that. I think it's wise. Jesus said, take up your sword. But then when Peter cut off there, he said, no. I said, take up your sword, be prepared, but not for this. All right. So I was talking to the young man, and I said, yeah, so Planned Parenthood was designed to, he said, yeah, I know. It was designed to kill the black babies, but I don't really care about all that. I said, what you mean you don't care about that? He said, well, I'm never going to abort my kids. And I said, you're never going to abort your kids. I said, but what about other people's kids? Where's your concern for other people? And he couldn't really say anything. There was a man one time, they said he was walking on some railroad tracks. And while he was walking on the railroad tracks, he couldn't hear that the train was coming. And somebody said, hey man, get off the tracks. Hey, get off the tracks. Hey, and then he realized the person wasn't hearing him. He ran and just pushed the guy off the tracks. When he pushed the guy off the tracks, the guy's life was spared. And the guy realized and said, oh man, I don't know if he had headphones on or something, but he said, man, I couldn't even hear that the train was coming. Thank you for sparing my life. I was talking about the civil rights movement, the law. You can have an unjust law. So just as the laws turned around, Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves are freed, there were unjust laws passed such as the Black Code, such as Jim Crow laws. So right when a good law was passed, some laws were passed to overturn the laws that were passed before. And we needed some more just laws after that to be passed, such as Brown versus Board of Education or affirmative action by John F. Kennedy and the civil rights workers and leaders, Martin Luther King and them. And the problem, going back to, so we're governed by the law, and we have to make sure that the law is just and right. And we're supposed to obey the law. We're supposed to obey the law of the land. But let me show you something in Acts 5:29. It says, Acts 5:29, then Peter said, and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than men. We ought to obey God rather than men. We ought to obey God rather than men. So yes, the Bible says obey the law. We obey the law. We obey the law. But we know full well that a law can be in place that is contrary to what we espouse as believers. And the law is not supposed to be used as an escape clause. For instance, if a man is married to a wife or a woman is married to a man and then says, you know what, I'm going to get a divorce because by law I can get a divorce because we have irreconcilable differences. So by the law of the land, and I'm obeying the law of the land, we have irreconcilable differences. And I'm obeying the law of the land. As a believer, you're called to an even higher law. That's why the law, when they were talking about in Romans, the government of the land is not a terror to workers of good. We're called to an even higher law than that. If a man or woman is going upside your head, that goes against other things. It says, follow peace with all men as much as lieth within you. If they calling for your abuse, that's not peace. You can't follow peace with that. So we have laws, and we're supposed to obey those laws. We have authority. We're supposed to obey those laws. And there's a need for good government. There's a need for good government. So that means there's a need for good laws, there's a need for good authority, and there's a need for good warfare. So let me show you what can happen with the laws. Because when I was a teenager in high school, I had a government class, and my teacher in my government class, he was excellent. He had us go to the library, research candidates, and from that, then vote. You know, be prepared to make your vote. And I was prepared. You know, I was going to turn 18, and when I turned 18, I voted for Democrats and Republicans. You know, I voted for whoever. After doing the research on them, I wanted the people in position whose values closely lined up with mine. So I knew, okay, I researched the laws, I'm voting on these laws because we're in a democracy, actually a democratic republic. So democracy means rule of the people. Democratic republic, it's rule of the people through those, those who are authorities in position, whatever, stuff like that. So we're in a democratic republic. Like, for instance, we don't all vote for the president. We vote, but the electoral college determines who the president is. So those who were in that position, they determine who the president was. Different things like that. But we're a democratic republic. You know, there's been other republics, like the Republic of Rome, the Republic of the Soviet Union. You know, it's just a republic. But it's still democratic. Democratic meaning it's ruled through the people. The reason why, when America was founded, there was a big emphasis on democracy. They didn't want someone in a position of authority to abuse them. So they set the laws in place in the Constitution and different things so they wouldn't be abused. And right now what we have is some laws being passed and being put in place that has given power to people in certain positions. And when you give power to people in certain positions, all that means is that when that position gets vacated by whoever was righteous and an unjust person gets in that position, there's a potential for all hell to break loose. For instance, when Herbert Hoover was in position, he made life hell for Martin Luther King and for Malcolm X. And they were just preachers. They were just sons of America and just preachers. But they went through hell. They went through hell. And you know, with the technology that we have right now, and certain laws that we have that override the Constitution that we have right now, it'd be hard for people who have a righteous assignment to get off the ground with these laws strip us of our freedoms. You know, it was give us liberty or give us death. So there's a need for us to be good citizens. And I learned to be a good citizen in my government class. And he said to be a good citizen, you have to participate. Who will say, okay, as part of my faith, I'm supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. So what does that mean? Well, see, here's the thing. It says all that is in the world is the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. So we're not supposed to be bound by any of those. Lust and pride, we're not supposed to be dominated by any of those.